if you want to know next season, go to the Village in New York and see what people are wearing. How can we not be ready when Snoop Dogg, comes into town?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Uncut, live from our studio in Dubai. The audio and visual podcast show that gives you exclusive scoop on our guests and hot topics including some of your favorite celebrities. And now, let the fun begin. Here's your host, S1.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to Uncut. I hope you guys are doing amazing. Welcome to another episode, guys. I'm definitely doing amazing, so I hope you are. I'm super excited. Today's guest is an amazing designer, someone who has designed for brands like Barbie, Evian, Toyota, Fairmont, Rosewood, and the Raffles Group. The list goes on. He has unmatched fashion experience and has a very artistic and a unique collection. Welcome, Hatem Alakeel.
Thank you. It's
How
good
are
to
you?
be here. Great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've been doing some research on your stuff, and
Okay.
I've been really, really positively shocked. Like, I didn't know someone like you existed in the region.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
How did this all start? Let's start from the small young Hatem. Like, what were you always into fashion? Were you always into that? Like, is it something that just came to you from childhood?
Well, I was always a fan of fashion. I was bitten by the fashion bug when I went to university in Boston, and I was offered to do like a fashion show in New York. Going back and forth to New York and seeing how dynamic and fantastic and really on trend everything is. I worked with brands like Armani and Jill Sander doing fashion shows. Wow. Although my major was marketing and communications, I was wondering, how can I get into this field? I never could really find the right formula to get into it.
Right.
When I finished college, did even more fashion shows and realized that, how am I going to get into this fashion world? Moved back to Saudi and worked in advertising, worked with Shalhoub for 3-4 years. Could not find my fashion formula, which I wanted, but got the experience.
Right.
And it wasn't until I went into banking and I realized that, this corporate world is not for me.
Right.
I want out. So
you didn't want to.
I went to Savile Row in London.
Okay.
And then a light bulb just went out into my head and said, I need to really find a way where we can bring a bit of Savile Row to tradition. That idea of really bringing a bit of excellence to traditional fashion, I had to wear a tobe every day at the bank. And the thing is, wearing the same thing every day, I'm the kind of person who likes to express my individuality a bit, So I just started to change the tobe a little bit, found some good tailors. And then the Savile Row concept came into mind. And then that's it. I said, I'm going to start designing my own tobes. Started designing my own tobes at the bank where I was still working there. And people would ask me, where can I get the tobe from? How can I get it? I was offering it to my friends initially. And then realized that I could turn it into a business.
Right.
2007, I opened my first boutique on Prince Sultan Street in Jeddah.
Wow.
And the rest is history, really. I mean, my whole idea was to really take the tobe, the traditional garment, and turn it into a coveted fashion item.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what a thobe is, it's basically the long traditional Arabic dress that people wear in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And you have reinvented
regions,
that.
Yeah, different regions call it differently. I mean, you have the Emirati Kandora, we have the Saudi Tobe, and then Dishdasha, which is in Kuwait.
Right.
I'd like to say that I'm one of the the people who kind of really wanted to take the traditional garment and turn it into something that's polished, that's international, that can hold its own with any brand. I was very lucky because for my first fashion show at Dubai Fashion Week, I was placed in this multi-brand luxury boutique called Villa Moda at that time.
Okay.
And then alongside all the super brands, so Dolce & Gabbana, Armani, Prada, and so forth, and then Boutique One and Saks. So the whole idea of showing that the traditional garment can hold its own with the international garments as well. That was kind of also my goal, to showcase that showcase the beauty of our culture.
Right.
I think that also there are a bit of misconceptions that everything is so black and white. Things don't have to be so black and white. There's so many ways of looking at different aspects of fashion and culture as well.
Did you find it challenging because you were playing with the traditional clothes, and this is something that people are used to already, that they have been wearing their white and black, simple, like you said, dressing for years.
Yeah.
So you coming in and adding an element might upset some, or might say, this is not how we wear it. Was it a challenge, like, to introduce a new style in that sense?
Initially, from a business perspective, it wasn't as beneficial to be so avant-garde and over the top. I mean, initially, for me, with fashion shows, designers like to flex their design muscles. So what you showcase in a fashion show is different than what you showcase in your boutique or when you're selling online and retail,
Sure.
What I was trying to demonstrate is that, variety is the spice of life. You need to have a few items in your closet that look different.
Right.
And that was from a personal perspective. For me, for my own, needs. When I was working in the bank, I wanted to have different style taubes that I could also say, okay, this is my personality. This is what reflects who I am. There wasn't so much backlash, but the attention was actually more towards the younger community. So you would have, the father would come and he would say, okay, this is a bit too avant-garde for me. And I would have my son and wear it, and in Ramadan, it's like, how we have Eid. It's like basically the most, important part of the year where, all the mothers kind of, compete against each other to see which is the most stylish or avant-garde dressed kid. So it turned that kind of movement into really taking the taube and turning it into a coveted fashion item. I mean, I've had people like Elie Mizrahi wear the Golden Globes, the Oscars, and Fashion Weeks. It's a statement. So I think that making traditional garment as a statement piece is something that we should all look and seek out to do. Definitely.
I love that.
Thanks.
Where did you grow up?
Well, my earlier years, where I was in a French lycée in Switzerland, French educated, and then I continued my high school in the States and university in Boston. Before going to high school in the States, I did 2 years in Saudi, 1 year in Riyadh and 1 year in Jeddah. And then I continued my studies in the States. I think that, as we were talking earlier, I think it's definitely a plus, and it's part of why I have done what I have done with my work, is basically to showcase how I actually have the Western and Eastern sensibility. I'm very proud of my roots, but I also think that our tradition needs to be highlighted in different ways as well.
I agree. A lot of people travel the world, but not necessarily take a lot with them. So it's important that you took something with you from other cultures and kind of combined it into your fashion, and designs.
Absolutely. And I think it's also an obligation for me as a Saudi who has spent a great deal of my years in the West. When I come back, I need to tell the story. And what better than fashion to have as a platform?
100%.
Fashion is a great way for you to express your perspective. It's a great way to bridge cultures. And it's a platform that designers are given that, it would be almost vulgar not to kind of give back to the community and showcase what you've learned.
Right. Do you remember what your first design was ever?
Yes, I remember my first design. It was while I was preparing for Dubai Fashion Week, when I really went all out. I'm saying I did very simple designs, but the ones that I was most proud of, and it has become quite iconic, it's the taube with a tie. So it's kind of, this has a fold, and then there's like a taube with a tie, and it was actually front cover of Gulf News. I remember when we were in Dubai Fashion Week, and that was a very defining moment for me, and it was also a way for me to showcase, okay, my Western, exposure and also my Eastern has literally been joined in one garment. And what better way to explain to your people that this is what your brand is about. This is what it explains. But then I think I also wanted to take it further because I'm also very much influenced by Japanese culture, by Asian culture. So it's more of a global fusion. It started out as a Western meets East, but then I realized that it's with social media, the world is so small, and we have access to an entire globe, really.
That's amazing.
So I think we should celebrate all cultures, really.
Did you find it easy entering the fashion world in the Middle East, or was it something that you think was more challenging, or is it more like on international standards? Because, entering fashion in general is very difficult, right? To create a name for yourself. And you have created quite a name for yourself here.
I mean, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it certainly wasn't in Saudi. Being a Saudi male designer, who really literally just left the banking world and started on my own. Basically, I mean, I was supported. My family was behind me 100%, and I was lucky I had that support. But it took a lot of years of coming to Dubai. Actually, Dubai has been a great launching pad for a lot of us Saudi designers, and now it's starting to take Saudi is becoming a bit more progressive, with Fashion Future and so many platforms that are starting to evolve. But we would always come to Dubai to get the recognition to do the fashion shows. From a sales perspective, Saudi is really the main one of the main markets at present. But initially, it took quite a few years for me to get my name out there, but my ongoing persistence with going back and forth to Dubai and making sure that you develop your own kind of signature and identity. I think that this is something that many designers should consider: is create your own signature style and not always follow what the trends are doing. Trends are important, but you need to also have your own stamp in what you do. I think that this is what will keep any designer afloat, growing, and for them not to be forgotten, I think.
Did you find that building your brand here was adding value to you in Saudi? Like, did it benefit you creating this name, doing your fashion shows? Was it added value when you went back?
Definitely. I think what Dubai has done, it has created a benchmark for the entire GCC, and from there we have really been able to take a business further, whether it's perception, whether it's merchandising, whether it's PR, of course, the importance of PR, the importance of visibility, and over the years, social media has kind of taken over the reins with that, with influencers and so forth. But before the whole influencer movement, there was, getting yourself in specific magazines, and now it's still very much of an image. And I think still to this day, I think all designers should look into placing themselves properly with viable publications that can give them a positioning. So having the right positioning, making sure that you're consistent, making sure that you associate yourself with the right publications, the right influencers, is very important, because in the end it's also a question of image and credibility. So there's certain pillars that must be reached when you're a designer, and you have to keep that consistency.
Toby by Hatem Alakeel debuted in 2008 at Dubai Fashion Week. What does Toby stand for?
Well, there's an expression in Arabic. It says "Ilbas min tobak," which means wear your own style. And for me, it was my way of wanting to demonstrate that although we are a very conformist society, we can still become our own individuals. So it's about individuality. It's about expressing who you are as a person. We do have this simple regular tobe. I've been designing that for quite some time, but now it's also about giving, like I mentioned, giving more variety to your closet, being able to express yourself.
And your main target audience are the youth?
Actually, depends on what area you're in KSA. Jeddah are from 25 to 50, are more progressive, and they're more forward-thinking when it comes to the tobe. They like to change the cut. They like to change the details. Riyadh is a bit more conservative. So they don't like to change it up too much to keep it simple and basic.
Okay.
You look at, for example, Sheikh Mohammed. Emiratis don't play with the cuts, but they play with the colors. So you look at multicolored thobes and
you
so
have
forth.
The blue, the
exactly
beige.
Yeah.
There's different colors.
Maroon, and it's even gone to green sometimes. Which is fantastic. So Saudis are less daring when it comes to colors, but more daring with cuts, depending on the region. Okay. And Emiratis are more daring with colors. Kuwaitis are also more kind of conservative. They don't really go too far with the cuts.
Okay.
So I would say Jeddah, which is on the Red Sea, it's pretty much the most kind of, they like to take risks.
Nice.
Fashion risks. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think fashion is something where you have to be kind of bold and,
For sure.
like, especially if you want to, a lot of people say they have a fashion sense, but wear all black. And I find that, like, sometimes, you can have a fashion sense. You might look good, in all black, but I don't think it's taking that bold step, that risk, factor. I think you need to be a little bit.
There's some fashion, as I say, calculated fashion risks.
Right.
Like wear
100%.
stuff that, that suits the person, wear something that would add value to their personality,
Right.
that complements them. We also have, requests from, North Africa, from Michigan, from the States.
Wow.
And it's amazing how you see how, like, Western Muslims, how they perceive the thobe and how they also like to kind of take the risks, and they wear it, on prayer time, and whether it's London or even New York, on Friday prayers. So it's actually the cool thing is that it's also become kind of like a cultural thing as well. It's not so much just a cultural thing; it's also something. It's about embracing, different cultures as well. It doesn't really have to be Saudi. It can be an approach that just appreciates cultures, and that's also a movement that I think we should all embrace, is to bridge cultures and to celebrate different cultures, and not just the one that we're from.
Yeah, I agree. Where can your designs be found? Like, if I want to buy one, is it a custom thing, or can I go online and purchase one? How does it work?
Usually there's the online website that people can access, and then there's, the retail in KSA, boutique in Saudi. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you in Dubai at all?
No, we had quite a few concessions with Saks and Boutique One and so forth, but now the focus is mostly online and retail. Yeah.
Okay. How do you find online, by the way? I'm very curious to know if do you find it it's supporting your business enough, or do you feel like it could be way stronger? Because it's a very particular thing you're in.
Yeah. I think as by default, the GCC demographic, besides Kuwait, are the less online active when it comes to fashion itself.
Right.
It's a statistic. Kuwaitis, they're very much used to it. But Saudi, I think when it comes to fashion itself, depending on where we are, it's still green and it still needs some time. And to add to that, also what we do is mostly like, custom made. So you send the measurements and so forth, But then there is also the ready-to-wear, which is not really part of the fashion, movement in the thobe business. Because the thobe business is custom-made. It's pretty much like how you can get that quality, how you can get that finishing. So there is definitely a challenge there that needs to be addressed. And I think that people still like to feel and touch and go to the tailor, have the check the measurements, have the check
it's
the
a fun
fabrics,
process, right?
It is, yeah.
What is your price point? Do you consider yourself a luxury brand? Do you consider yourself affordable?
I would say it's more affordable luxury.
Okay.
Prices ranges from it can go from 400 dirhams to that's the lowest, to 1,000, 2,000, depending on the work, depending on how much detail it is. But the whole idea is to really give something that's qualitative for an affordable price that can last for more than like 6 months, basically. Something that you can add to your closet and you can really be proud of. That has mileage. Because I think that now, especially with sustainability and people wanting to have more mileage out of their purchases.
Right. I agree.
The whole kind of mass selling is slightly deviating towards more quality. I think people now really want to have more value in the things that they buy.
I agree.
Yeah.
You've dressed quite a number of different people. People like Snoop Dogg, Christian Louboutin, His Royal Highness the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William, the Mayor of Jeddah, His Royal Highness Prince Khalid. How does this happen? Like, do they just call you, or?
I mean, I've been very lucky. I think that what I have done in the past has been quite visible. And I'm proud to say that also the quality has also been kind of visible. So it's not just about the design aspect, it's also about the quality, it's about the execution. And the way it happened with Snoop Dogg, I mean, he came to Dubai. Once he performed in Abu Dhabi, his first show, and they reached out to us, but we weren't ready. And then it was a lesson for us that we learned. We're like, how can we not be ready when Snoop Dogg, comes into town?
Yes.
And so we made sure that we always have, an abundance of cool taubes ready.
Yeah.
And then we heard that Snoop Dogg was coming back to Dubai, so they contacted us again, and we made sure we were ready then.
Yeah, so the second time.
Designed a full collection
amazing.
that was really unique and authentic. He basically became the star of this taube that I created, which is called a tuxedo taube, which he wore during his Here Comes the King concert in Dubai, and then surprised me because there was also 7 other taubes which I gave him when he came, and it was in his music video as well, the Here Comes the King music video. So
nice.
He was actually quite generous in supporting.
Wow.
So that was also, I think, a very defining moment for me and my designing process, taking the whole taube to street style and making it cool and hip. And that's, I think, a movement that I'm also proud of being part of, the whole idea of making it relevant, making it cool, getting the kids to come back to their tradition and look at it in a more objective way.
I want that. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Because, I mean, anything that's traditional is usually seen as being primitive. And actually, no. Like, I think that when you hold on to your tradition, you move forward while doing it, you can still kind of, you have a stronger sense of identity.
I agree.
Because of your culture and your tradition.
And it's so important not to lose that, right?
Of course.
Because it's so easy to lose it nowadays. You can growing up in this generation is like, you can lose your culture and history. And
for sure. The whole DNA of my brand is based on that. It's about celebrating your culture and moving it forward.
That's
not
amazing.
just looking at it and saying, okay, we have a great culture, but how can we take that culture and how can we move it forward, and how can we inspire the youth to look at it in a more objective way than just old school?
Right.
Yeah.
So working with these big brands and these big names, did you gain any? Is there a big benefit that comes with it, or do you feel like it's it's good exposure, but in reality, like, is it really affecting business? No. That's a question mark I always have. I
mean, there's no overnight sensation. Overnight you dress someone and then khalas, you're set. It is an ongoing process. Fashion is an ongoing process. Fashion is something that you have to keep. You have to be consistent. And yes, the celebrities definitely help you, especially with social media now, even more than before, because you have someone that wears something in particular, and then you do get requests on Instagram. From whoever is wearing that item, you do it. So it does actually have an impact. Okay. How effective the impact is depends on how active the brand is and how active the designer is in keeping the consistency going, and also how does the brand connect with the viewers and connect with the clients. And it's a 360 ongoing process that must be there. But having those accolades and milestones, of course, only adds tremendous value to the brand. It adds to the credibility of the brand. It adds to the clientele of the brand as well, for sure.
Would you be willing to explore different styles as well? I mean, moving away from the thobes and focusing on streetwear or I don't know, suits, or would you?
I have actually. I started with Hatem Alakeel brand, which I'm starting.
Yeah.
We do bomber jackets, we do shirts, we do statement pieces.
Nice.
My approach is about creating statement pieces that can go with everything. Now it's about really adding pieces, staple pieces to your closet that you can hold on to and wear with different items. So definitely, I mean, just like the tobe, I think is a staple and is a fashion item that I would like people to look at it that way.
Yeah.
I also think that there are certain Western items that need to be created so they have that mileage and have that value. So this is my approach, and I have a few collections coming up soon.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
You mentioned that your family was supportive of you.
Yeah.
Who was not supportive? Like, what were your biggest struggles starting this whole thing?
I mean, the perception, as mentioned, really having an avant-garde collection without having one simple tobe initially was definitely not a good business decision.
Yeah.
Although I was able to get myself across, it was a good PR tactic. But from a sales perspective, I learned that, okay, I have to do simple stuff.
Yeah.
And when I started doing simple stuff, then the sales started to come in. Then the business started to flourish. And this is why also as a designer, I think that it's very important to be with someone who's there with them, who has business acumen.
Right.
Which I certainly did not have initially.
You wanted to focus on your design.
I wanted to say, you know what, I don't care. I want to flex my design muscles. I want to show what culture can be, how cool culture can be, how fashionable tradition can be. And yes, it has definitely placed me as a designer who is avant-garde and who kind of tackles traditional values and who really bridges cultures, and that's exactly how I want it to be. But from a sales perspective, in the first year, people were definitely a bit like, okay, this is cool. We'll bring our kid in Ramadan to come and wear it, but that's it. We won't wear it like every day. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? No, I need to really simplify it, I went back to my banking days. What I would wear for myself, because obviously during the banking days I couldn't wear the tobe with the tie or the or the Snoop Dogg tobe. So you have to also be practical. And it's a lesson that I've learned. Practicality is important. I mean, when you're a designer, you have pieces that you design for your collections, and then you have pieces that you design for your retail or for your sales.
For the masses.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you need to be practical, but also you need to be authentic, and so there's a fine line between being authentic and practical, and having that, that signature that would cross over to a larger group of people.
Right. You have design for women as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And kids or no kids?
Lady, I mean, a lot of the stuff for kids is usually for the boys.
Okay.
Although I've gotten quite a few requests,
yeah.
For the ladies, I've done, like statement jackets,
okay.
Long embroidered statement jackets that could come across as being modern. It doesn't just stop at the modest movement. It can also be worn, on Avenue Montaigne in Paris or Tahliya in Jeddah. It's the idea of really taking the traditional garment and making it into a fashion item. That's always been my goal,
Yeah.
So for women as well, I think that we call it a abaya. I don't like to call it a abaya. I call it the non-abaya because it can be seen as a cover-up, but at the same time, when you say abaya, you label, so the idea is to show a garment that has traditional aesthetic, can be worn by anyone from any culture, really.
That's true. Yeah. You have been dubbed the Middle Eastern Tom Ford. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's really flattering. I mean, those are really big shoes to fill. I really better up my fashion game, Tom Ford is the ultimate association. I mean, I couldn't be any happier. I'm far from that. I still have a lot that I want to accomplish. I'm still although I've been in the business now for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
There's so much that I haven't achieved yet, and inshallah, I hope to achieve more and change perception more. I think it is one thing that I'm glad I've achieved is to change perception on tradition, elevate the concept and the perspective of traditional fashion. That's always been my goal as well.
Because your struggle is not just designing, but like I mentioned, because it's traditional stuff, you also have to kind of educate, right? So
Gradual.
your process is a bit longer than a normal
Yes.
streetwear or any kind of other fashion wear designer,
Of course, and the thing is, I mean, I also like writing now because, and I like, talking, and I like speaking with people like yourself.
Right.
I think it's important because when you have a signature, when you have a message that you want to convey in your fashion,
Right.
you need to also translate that message in your fashion, in rhetoric, in writing, in thought. And I think we all have an obligation as designers to communicate what we have and have a strong message. And that's
Right.
always been my message, I think that unfortunately now there's a bit of, misunderstanding towards tradition, towards culture. People are like, we want to be progressive, we want to
Right.
be innovative. But going back to what I said, you can have all of those aspects of being progressive and modern, but still holding on to your tradition. And that I feel this is my calling.
Yeah.
And this is, and I want to communicate that not just in my design, in many other aspects as well.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you coming
Thank you.
and talking about certain things because, again, it's rarely that we have talents like yourself in the Middle East that actually are able to create a name for themselves, So we're proud of people like you,
Thank you
and
very
we
much.
support you guys 100%.
Much appreciated.
Who is your all-time favorite designer?
Wow, that's a tough question. There's so many. Now from the modern designers, I think Haider Ackerman is amazing. His
Okay.
aesthetic is just really modern, and there's traditional. Of course, the McQueens, the Gallianos, and all those are great, epic.
Yes.
Geniuses. But the ones who have inspired me the most are the ones who are from Japanese culture, because people like Yoji Yamamoto or Issey Miyake have
Yes.
gotten international appeal by taking their culture further.
True.
And to me, this is my message.
They
So
speak your
they
language.
it's exactly like my whole ethos is about taking a tradition, turning it into something cool, and globalizing it, and having other cultures appreciate it as well. For me, Japanese culture is definitely something that I've always been inspired by as well.
Yeah.
My first fashion show had like the samurai influence.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I mean, there's so many.
Do you enjoy modeling? Because you model too, right?
Yes, in the earlier years, it was fun because I had access to, fashion shows, people like Armani and Jill Sander, and the whole fashion world for me was quite magical.
Right.
It's fun, but I think that, there needs to be other things as well. It was a fun thing for me to do when I was going to school.
Okay.
And, I like the rides to New York, and getting all that exposure from New York culture was really cool, especially this, the fashion culture in New York was so dynamic, and it still is. Even
Right.
Anna Wintour would say, if you want to know next season, go to the Village in New York and see what people are wearing. So
True.
all of that exposure was instrumental in getting me to where I am now. Definitely.
You're also a columnist on Bureau 24/7. What do you write about on your column? It's called Gems of Arabia.
Gems of Arabia. Well, as mentioned, I consider myself to be an Arab empowerment enthusiast.
Right.
And Gems of Arabia is about highlighting all the great movers and shakers in the Arab world who are shaking perception, changing perception. People like artists like Yusuf Nabil, Her Royal Highness Princess Rima bin Bandar, the ambassador to the United States.
Yes.
Ahad Kamel, the first Saudi Netflix series, Saudi actress. It's amazing how people are really changing the landscape and adding value to the Arab landscape. And I think that this is what we should be doing. We should be promoting them, and we should be shedding light on them even more. And even people who are kind of like unsung heroes. I don't just want to feature, popular people who are artists, who are adding to the intellectual landscape as well. I think are people who I would love to feature as well. So the whole idea is to highlight the shimmering gems and the unsung heroes as well.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What would you say is one of your goals in life, other than fashion and spreading that, as a personal goal in life?
I think changing perception is something that I want to continue doing, and I hope I'm in the position one day where I can give back to the community, empower our community, improve the infrastructure that we have, and especially in particular KSA, there's so many levels of infrastructure that we can improve, whether it's fashion manufacturing, whether it's perception of PR, we're on our way, but I would love to be part of that movement. And I also would love to give back to society, so
that's amazing. What would you have been if you weren't a fashion designer?
Well, definitely not a banker, that's for sure.
No, right? That wasn't for you?
Yeah, I think I realized how much I enjoy journalism and how much I enjoy writing.
Okay.
I think that I would most definitely, and I have so much to say. I always have ideas, and I've used fashion as a platform to express myself. And now I feel like I also want to start using, words and paragraphs and columns, so...
That's really good. I think writing is beautiful.
Thank you.
I've never been much of a reader/writer, but I've been one to talk, So this talk shows the perfect thing for me,
you have things to say.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a great talk show, by the way.
Thank you so much. When is your next fashion show? Because I want to be there. I want to see it,
You're most welcome. Listen, I don't really believe in doing fashion shows anymore. It's more about presentations,
Okay.
But inshallah, maybe in a couple of months, I'll definitely let you know.
Okay.
It's a process. It is. And I think that people that do fashion shows are in a sense very smart to take that step. And it's very necessary. There's great fashion weeks like Fashion Forward and so forth that are really, really creating a platform here, which is fantastic. But my strategy is a little bit different. And everyone should have their different strategy.
Sure.
But I think that it's great that this movement is starting. I think it's great that, especially in Saudi, it's starting. We should have more fashion shows. We should have more of this. I highly promote it, definitely.
What is your 2020 goals?
My 2020 goals is for us to hopefully have a better start than the past few weeks that we've had. It hasn't been a very good one,
Okay.
World peace and world health.
Yes.
I really hope that I continue doing what I love and continue to, be lucky enough to have people that support my messages and believe in my messages, because I think that if everything that you do should have a message, to continue honoring my messages and everything that I do, I think.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
What's the best advice you can give young fashion designers? Because a lot of young people are watching, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to go into fashion, maybe even people that come from Saudi or come from the Middle East, and as a man fashion designer might be shy to enter that world, or guys, I don't understand. If you're shy about entering being a men fashion designer, there's some of the biggest fashion designers that are and I mean by all means straight, and not that there's something wrong if you're the opposite, but there's nothing. A lot of times there's this perception of, if you're into fashion, you have to be very feminine, or and which is not true. I don't see it at all. I'm super into fashion. I love fashion. And I don't think that perception should exist anymore, What's the advice? Like, how can you...
Definitely like an old school perception. And, I think that, nothing is, as mentioned, so black and white. If you're passionate about something, make sure you also have the business acumen to pursue it, so you can sustain it and you can have a good partner who can really help you move it forward. Having an authentic message, a unique message that will be different from anyone else. Be brave enough to know that whatever the market is doing, you do the opposite. And you can stay and you can float and do as much as anyone else. I think those are, and there are no rules, really. I mean, people like Tom Ford didn't really, get that deep into fashion. Diane von Furstenberg didn't go to fashion school, Look at where she is now. So there's no rules. If you have the passion and you have solutions to achieve your passion, the sky is the limit. And don't let anything really get in your way of your passion and your dreams. Because the worst thing that you can do is say I wish I did that or have regret. Right. That's the worst.
And I think that's really good advice because especially in terms of having the business aspect to it as well, right? Absolutely. A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to go into fashion, or oh, I'm going to go into music, or oh, I'm going to go entertainment. Yeah. That kind of world is easy to just say, I'm going to do that without actually thinking about the business aspect, because
the key is consistency and being able to take the business forward and staying for a certain period of time. Like it's very important.
True. Yeah. Well, last question that I'm gonna ask you is, share with me something that you haven't shared with anyone before, whether it's something personal or whether it's something. We want to give the audience one exclusive Hatem.
Okay, interesting question. Something that I don't know about me before. I can be very neurotic, very OCD.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with movies. I have an obsession with like a really obsession. I spend way too much time like dreaming about certain episodes of Netflix or whatever.
I love that. Wait. I want to explore that. So movies, is this something you've been into ever since?
It's an obsession, and it can get pretty serious because I have friends, and I could literally any free time I have,
you're watching a movie.
I watch TV, movies, in particular series.
What is the reason behind that?
The reason behind that is because as an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking about work.
Right.
I'm always, it never shuts off. Once you're an entrepreneur, you know what they say, you be careful for what you wish for, because once you have what you wish for, there's no downtime.
Yes.
When you have a 9 to 5, you khalas. 5 o'clock, you switch off and you're done. But with movies, you really go into the world and you get transported into the movie itself, and you don't think about work, you don't think about anything. You just get to dream and go into that world. And I've always loved that.
That's amazing.
So it's definitely something that a quality that I have that I need to stop doing. Maybe I could read even more. I love reading, but I always prioritize with the series.
And what kind of, is it like sci-fi or?
I mean, it varies.
Anything?
It varies. There's so many really interesting ones. I love documentaries in particular. I love things that really kind of give you that perspective. What I'm also really into now is the master classes.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen those.
Yes.
So interesting. I mean, I like to educate myself. It's a whole process. And it's nice to have content that's entertaining and will also show you a perspective, like we discussed before, knowing different perspectives of different people.
Of course.
The whole point of really growing is like sharing perspectives. I think what we lack as Arabs is we always say, okay, we know everything, Habibi, no.
Yeah.
The more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know.
Yes.
And, this is definitely my whole passion.
Awesome. We're going to play a quick game, if you don't mind. I'm going to ask you a question about your favorite things, and you say the first thing that comes to your mind really quick.
Okay.
All right? Let's get the music, dramatic music in.
Sure.
Favorite food?
Okay. Should I mention it?
Yeah, so you just say the first thing that comes to your mind when I say it. Pasta. Favorite vacation destination?
Mykonos.
Oh. Favorite TV show or movie?
Wait, it's a tough one. Okay, morning show.
Favorite fashion show you have been to?
Okay, fashion show. Alexander McQueen.
Nice. Favorite singer?
Whitney Houston.
Nice. Favorite thing to do in your free time? You just answered that.
Watching Netflix. For sure.
Favorite event or occasion to dress up for?
Favorite event or occasion to dress up for? Interesting. I mean, I think any of the fashion weeks in Paris or Milan, or you want to up your fashion game. You want to make sure you're. So I think those are the ones where you really put a lot of thought into them.
Nice. Yeah. Favorite fashion trend right now?
I'm hoping that the idea is to, go back to well-made suits and more structured stuff.
Nice.
I think we've been very casual for too long, and it's time to go back to that. So there is a rumor in fashion that this is actually happening.
Right?
But I don't see it
in terms of like old school kind of like suits,
like well-tailored suits.
Yeah.
Even if you mix it up, at least you have one item that's like structured.
True.
Yeah.
Favorite cologne?
I mean, my go-to is either Tom Ford or Dior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite store?
Favorite store? I mean, it's no longer open, but my favorite store that was ever created was Colette in Paris.
Okay.
They just closed, and now there's a whole online movement now that they're doing with different PR publications, because it's become such an iconic store that had all the most amazing collections from all designers, and even like items like books, accessories, music. It really was like an epic institution. It became an institution. Yeah.
So are they trying to bring it back now, or
they're bringing it back online, and they're trying to create like pop-ups through different publications, which I think is a fantastic way of going about.
That's amazing.
Because sadly, retail now is slowly,
dying.
Off. Yeah.
Hatem, it was amazing having you on the show.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
We hope you come back, and I hope the audience got something away, learned something. I definitely did. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you.
And whenever you have something new, let us know.
Will do. Thanks for having me, and I commend you on your great show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Guys, if you're listening to the audio version only, please make sure you come check out the visuals. They're amazing. And if you're new, subscribe, like, and comment down below. Next episode coming very soon. We love you, and we're out.